back to an episode of the Open Source Cafe. And today, this is a very special episode because we have YK here with us. I'm sure if you're into computer science or if you learn from YouTube, you may have come across YK's YouTube channel. He has around 1.8 million subscribers on YouTube, some great content out there. So, yeah, do check it out. But yeah, before we get started, YK, would you like to tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing currently?
Sure. Hey, I'm YK. I have a YouTube channel called CS Dojo where I taught programming and computer science. And I've done different things over time. I studied as a software engineer, and then I did YouTube full time for a while. I was a developer advocate, and now I do more of engineering at a startup as well as my open source project.
Amazing, and we'll talk more about this because YK has touched upon so many domains in his career. So we'll talk about the road less traveled in software development. I will talk about like content creation, learning in public, and all sorts of things. But let's get started with the YouTube part first. Why? How did you decide to make a channel, and how did you scale it to like such a huge community?
Right. So I was watching a lot of YouTube videos at that time. Not necessarily tech videos, but just YouTube videos in general. And I just thought I can do it, and I did it. I mean, that's really the simplest way to put it. But I tried a bunch of different things. I remember I started writing some LinkedIn articles, Medium articles, and things like that. I tried starting a few, different channels on different topics like traveling, self-help, and things like that. And then it turned out this combination of YouTube and coding interviews in particular was the thing that clicked. So I just, kept going with it. And I expanded out of, coding interviews because people were asking me for different topics like, beginner-oriented videos, computer science, or data structures and algorithms, and things like beginner Python series and a lot of stuff like that. So I just kept responding to those requests, and my channel grew that way.
So you got feedback from the community and you saw what's working. And
Right.
how long did it take you to reach to cross like a million?
I don't remember exactly how long. I remember in my first year, I went from 0 to 7,000, like on a part-time basis, and then after that, I think it took me like a few years to get to a million.
I see. I see. Cool. Awesome. And what are you focused on currently with your YouTube channel? Like, where is it headed?
Right. So that's honestly something I'm still trying to figure out. But live streams, I've been enjoying them, so I definitely want to do more of them. Like live stream interviews.
Hmm.
Open source. That's something I want to start talking about. Um, I'm not sure exactly, what the format is going to be, but that's something I'm really interested in. So I definitely want to talk about that. And then the other thing is, more of like non-technical videos. You could call it like self-help, but
Hmm.
just things that software engineers are interested in that are not necessarily technical. Things like the imposter syndrome or burnouts and stuff like that. I think would be interesting to a lot of software engineers.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And since we're talking about, the stuff apart from software development, um, you have been pretty active in on like Twitter now recently as well. You crossed 50,000 and you're connecting so many spaces, helping a lot of folks. So learning in public thing, that you also share about, what benefits do you see this for like software developers? I know you have said it before, and I agree that it's not really mandatory. And if it's not mandatory, then why would anyone want to do it?
Right. Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of re-emphasize that by saying it is not for everyone, but it would be helpful for a lot of people. The way I see it is it's just a way to document what you've learned. That's sort of the easiest way to go about it. You learn something and you think about it. You just make a tweet. That's like the easiest way to do it. And if you're trying to do a specific thing, and if you can't find a particular resource for it, or if you can't find like a good resource for it, You can make a Medium article about it. People will start searching you for it eventually, and eventually, if other people are having the same problem, they'll start finding your article. So that's the way I would go about it. And the nice thing about it is, if you make a mistake, people will correct it. Even if you don't ask them to correct it, people like to correct things on the internet. So it's like it's a way to again document what you've learned, and at the same time kind of learn faster potentially, because you can get like corrections from other people.
So, speaking of which, is it only for like the junior developers who are starting out, or do you see this to be a trend with seniors as well on social media?
I think it would work for both junior developers and senior developers. I think on Twitter you tend to see a lot of junior oriented content, but obviously that's not the only audience out there. Twitter is one thing. I guess I would say if you're a senior, try Twitter. Obviously, that's the easiest way to try content. And if it doesn't work, try other medium like Medium, Dev.to, and there are a couple other ones like that. You can try like Substack too. So I think it really depends on the platform too.
Yeah. One misconception folks have about learning in public and stuff is they think it means like a following. It basically means credibility and, like YK mentioned, documenting your journey. So you don't have to have like a huge number of followers in order to do it. Like some of the best developers I know, I have under 1,000 followers.
Yeah. Uh, okay, so for senior developers in particular, I want to recommend a few sort of potential avenues for creating content. I'm going to mention Pluralsight, LinkedIn Learning, and Egghead.io. I think those three are good because like you mentioned, you don't need to have a lot of following to create a piece of content, video course for one of those platforms. And then there might be some other ones too. But the idea is, you create a piece of content because you have some credibility, you have some experience, you get to share your knowledge, you get to pay, you get paid a little bit, and then people will be able to find you on one of those platforms. So that's I definitely recommend one of those platforms.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thanks for sharing, YK. And you mentioned and you touched upon like a little bit. You said about you want to create more content around imposter syndrome. So can you tell us a little bit more about, like, have you ever faced imposter syndrome and how you dealt with it, or would you recommend people to deal with it?
Right. Personally, I haven't faced that much imposter syndrome. Maybe a little bit, but I know that a lot of people do. A lot of software engineers do, junior or senior. I think the first thing to know is that you're not born knowing everything. Everyone needs to learn something. Uh, so it's okay not to know everything, and I would break it down. If you ever feel like some sort of imposter syndrome, I would break it down to uh, what it is exactly. So say someone starts working as a junior developer and they feel like, oh, I don't know everything. Well, what is everything then? So make a list of things that you don't know, and then just start learning them. So that's the first part, in my opinion, just learning the stuff that you feel like you need to know. And then the second part is, I think, just vocalizing it, talking about it with other people. I think that's going to be helpful because other people probably had the same stuff. So just talk to your manager about it. If the manager is open to that kind of discussion, talk to colleagues or friends, and um, yeah, just vocalize it.
Agree. And it's nothing to be ashamed about. Like, not knowing something is, it's not a bad thing, but staying that way is. So definitely reach out and try to work on it. But it's completely fine if in a new place you don't know about the tech, you're taking your time. It's okay. Um, cool. Since we're talking about the road less traveled, as you also shared a lot about, a little bit about fit devs on Twitter. You know, prioritizing health, which is something folks miss out on when they, you know, when they're ramping up their career. So you like to just touch a little bit upon the importance of that and how you're dealing with it.
Yep. Um, I think the first thing I should say is a lot of people tend to kind of set their um, main life goal as the same thing as their career goal, and and a lot of people like regret doing that afterwards. So what I mean by that is, the society kind of puts a lot of pressure on, a lot of people to just make as much money as possible, and be as famous as possible and stuff like that. And I feel like the society doesn't put enough pressure for people to be like maybe happier, healthier, um, those things. So people tend to have this default goal of, say making as much money as possible, or just being as successful as possible. And that's great. Obviously, like if you can do that, go for it. But a lot of people regret it at the same time. They tend to have health issues after a while. Maybe after a few years, after several years. Maybe they have relationship issues after a few years or several years. So keep that in mind, and just first of all understand what your goal is. Is it just that career goal? Is the career goal really the same thing as your life goal, or is there anything more like health, relationship, those things? And then when it comes to health in particular, I think there are a few things that developers can do. The easiest thing they can do is probably switch from sugary drinks to water, and or like some kind of healthier alternative. And that might sound kind of silly, but in my opinion, health is all about diet, or mostly about diet. What you take into your body, and so that's the first thing you can look at. And then other than that, just like regular advice people give, like standing up regularly, not sitting too much, walking from time to time. That's also helpful. And I feel like when people hear about fit devs, this hashtag fit devs, they might have this expectation that they need to work out a lot, but that's not true. If you can do like, I know 30-minute fast walk every week, that already has some, at least has some like positive mental health effect. And I know that from a study I read a while ago. So that's, those are all like good place to start.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Before it's too late. I loved your point that you mentioned about career goals and life goals. I think that was pretty insightful. Thanks a lot for sharing. So you mentioned you've done in so many fields. You've tried startups, tech companies, like big tech companies, your own channel, uh, freelance or whatever, open source now. So my question to you is, how do you stay consistent and where do you find like motivation? This is actually not my question because I already know the answer.
Hmm.
because but it's a question that people ask on social media quite a lot.
Right. I think it is definitely a common piece of question. And I think the first thing I would say, oh, by the way, is the background noise okay? Okay. Yeah, the first thing I would say is, you know, consistency beats intensity. That's something I say on Twitter sometimes. So, intensity means, you might spend like 10 hours a day for a few days, but that's it. But consistency is more like, you spend maybe 1 hour every day for a few months. And in my opinion, that's much better. And for a few reasons. One is, ev- if you spread it out like that, your mind is more fresh every time you start working, so you're more productive that way. And the other thing is, if you just do a little bit every day, it adds up to a lot over time. So if you can start with, say you're learning a new technical skill, if you can do 30 minutes a day or 1 hour a day, that's already a good start. So start from there. And then when things get hard, I would say, keep a few things in mind. One is just remind yourself why you started doing that thing in the first place. And if that if that why actually aligns with your career goal, your life goal, and all of that. And then the other thing is, I think getting started is sometimes the hardest part. So just start. What I recommend is like write down the first piece of action that you can take to get started with that particular thing, and then just start with it.
Amazing, great tips, YK. Thanks a lot for sharing. And a follow up question on that is how do you balance all these things?
Right. Uh, so my usual recommendation is to just focus on your main priority first. So that might be work or school or open source work or whatever you want to set as your first priority. Try to spend enough time on that, and that might be like 4 to 5 hours of focused work. People say like, oh, you need to work like certain amount of hours, but it is hard to like do focused work more than 4 hours, in my opinion. After 4 hours you might do like some like little chores or stuff like that. But I think if you can do like, I would say 3 to 4 hours of focused work, that's already pretty good. So that's for the main priority. And then on top of that, if you can spend like 30 minutes to an hour, that's already a good start. If you can do like 2 hours every day on like something on top of it, whether it's like preparing for interviews or again like learning a new technical skills, I think that's going to be a huge plus.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing, YK. And I also loved your point related to um, consistency. That was pretty practical. But yeah, those are pretty much all the questions I had around the not so software development things. I mean, obviously it's related to your like the development and whatever we talk about, oftentimes overlooked, but important things to you know think about and be considerate of. But yeah, thanks for joining, YK. And for everyone else, to check out the links in the description below. Check out YK's channel and Twitter handle. There's some amazing Twitter spaces. Yeah, we all do. But yeah, see you in the next one. And thanks again, YK, for joining, for giving me time. Yeah, lovely talking to you. Bye.
All right.